she was like, your back hair is really soft. I was like, yeah, it is. She goes, did you condition that at all?
What episode's this? Episode
20.
20?
Don't start this now.
Right.
Doesn't-
Right. How's it going? Welcome back to Here's the Craic podcast, episode 20. Thomas is going to kill me for saying episode 20 because he doesn't like it whenever I indicate what episode we're on, even though I think it's very important. But Thomas is very annoyed. We have a guest on today, Dave Elliott, who has agreed to come on our podcast.
Hi, guy. Am I allowed to talk yet? Am I allowed to say hi? Are you still doing the intro? Keep that?
We'll give you the green light.
Okay, sweet.
Go on ahead. But no, you've agreed to come on the podcast. Thank you very much.
No
we'll promise we won't keep you for too long. The last person we had on a Zoom podcast was Tim Gallagher from Dirt Civil.
Oh, jeez. How long did he keep you on for? More importantly, I'm sure.
He sat against the radiator, and like towards the end of the podcast, we were like maybe half an hour, 40 minutes in, and I was genuinely looking at him like, I'm colorblind, but I could see his face was like bright red. I was like, he's gonna die on us here. Like he was sitting beside a radiator or something. I was like, why?
That's probably some sort of just like meditation, Zoom yoga type thing.
Health and fitness.
Yeah,
he burned like
my wife doesn't let me turn the radiator on, so don't worry, I'm grand. I'm just freezing if anything.
But yeah, we'll get straight into it anyway. First of all, you have well, obviously you don't have it at the moment because of COVID and whatnot and all that crap. I don't want to talk too much about COVID, but then you have your own gig coming up. Is it December time?
December. I tried to book it far enough in the future that maybe people will be allowed out again. So December 17th in Plenty Ulster Hall.
So that's what I was going to ask. Did you book it during COVID or did you book it pre-COVID?
I booked it during it. I just thought, you know what, let's give it a rattle and see, because I was thinking about shows to do at some point this year. I had plans for 2020, as I'm sure most people did, and then COVID happened and it was like very early doors. I went, right, well, I'll not be doing stand-up, so what can I do in between, like, to keep busy? So podcasting, writing, other things. And I just was getting to the point where I was sort of seeing gigs starting to get booked again. And I was thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to do a tour this year because of maybe not knowing what's going on. So I thought I'll try and book a big show. And then I just, for some reason, was like, I was going to do the Ulster Hall in 2022. And I just thought, you know, why wait? Well, what's going to change in this year that all of a sudden it's going to be, I'll do it next year. So I thought, you know what, just do it and we'll see what happens. So yeah on a bit of a whim, I thought I'll do it. And then the promoters were like, yes, sweet, we've got a date for December. And I went, right, let's do it. Let's just go and see what happens. So here we are. Very tight bum already in January, ready to go. So, and
have you is that like the biggest? Because I know you've done the Ulster Hall before.
Yeah, I did it with the rest of I think it was 6 of us. It was myself, Colin, Mickey, Aaron, Woodsy, and Kieran Bartlett, and Aaron McCann. Yeah, I said McCann. Yeah, so we did it I think it was maybe 4 years ago, and then it was just, you know, after that we sort of guys started doing their own gigs, and everybody individually kind of got busier and busier, and I just thought, yeah, it's a good time to give it a go, really, you know, and and I've been a bit taken aback really with the response so far. It's been class, so just hopefully it'll carry on and we'll get with any luck a sellout, but even just a really good crowd, I'd be delighted.
Yeah. So like, do you stick it up and then immediately is it just like a nail biter in terms of like, because I couldn't imagine doing anything like that. You sticking something up and you're just like, is this going to take or is it not? And then is it just, I would be a mess.
No, it's weird. You put it up and it's like you're building up to it because you don't really tell a lot of people what's happening. So there's a wee bit of a buzz about it happening. And then whenever you put it up, you're like, oh, that's it, it's out. And then you sort of, there's a period where you're like, you can see the response. Well, like sometimes, you know, on social media, people can be great. And then at the same time, they can be shitheads as well. So you're going on, no, just hope. But the response has been really good. And then the first like couple of days, a load of tickets shifted. And I was like, right, okay, it makes me feel a bit easier, you know, and now I can be like, right, I'm on track. So just, you know, once we sort of do the promotion and that, it should go rightly. So yeah, it's happening, and it's far enough away that you can relax a bit. But I think come maybe sort of May time, I might start going, no, if I've not bought my arse to shift any more tickets, you know. So, but yeah, it's nice. It's out there. Response has been good, and I'm excited.
What way does it work in terms of like doing gigs? Like, do you go to like Ulster Hall or like
You know, like what way does it work in terms of that?
No, well, like I sort of I have an agent, and he kind of speaks to me about what I should be at. Basically, he said you should just thought about here, you thought about there, and then like you speak with promoters. So I worked with Shine before when I did my tour last year, and I played the Limelight was my kind of the big Belfast show I did, and then it was just sort of felt like a discussion that was going to be, the likelihood of a tour this year probably not going to happen, So I thought, let's just put it towards doing a big show, and then when you speak to the promoters at Shine, they were like, well, you should probably try here, and you sort of go, should I? And then they're like, yeah, we'll just book it, it's free in this date, and you go, and you get a bit like, fuck, let's just do it, let's go for it. And then once you book it, you go, no. Then you tell your wife, and she's like, why have you done that? And you go, just thanks for the support. You say, you're just going to be stressed the entire year. I'm like, listen, that's all part of the fun,
Yeah.
So and if I have a heart attack on the way up to the show, somebody can step in and everyone will buy tickets out of support for me and my family, So it's win-win.
And do you have any sort of nerves, like not having doing gigs really, like because of COVID? Or are you sort of
I think I did about 3 gigs from like, it's weird because I finished, the last dates of my tour were in very late January in 2020. So I had been gigging flat out up until then. And then I think I've done 3 gigs since COVID. I did 2 shows in the Limelight when it was sort of open again and back to normal. The first gig back, I was like, this will be great. I'm excited. Can't wait to do it. Got on stage, was like, I forget fully how to do this. And it took a wee bit of time to be like, how to remember my cues, but after that first show, the second one was a lot of fun. And then we did put on a gig in the Boneyard, which is associated with Pug Uglies, where I run a comedy club, and it was class at like an outdoor venue, and it was just the first time I'd done a gig there, so it was really good. And then I thought, right, we can get one of these every month, and then obviously shut down again. So I think I'm hoping that there'll be some sort of gigs between now and then to kind of work the show and work new bits, and it'll probably be like going sort of back to the beginning a bit. I think a lot of us would play, the bars with like 2 or 3 people. I think we'd almost like go into people's living rooms and be like, can I just do a set for you here at this point? So I just think we'll probably be like starting from scratch, but I'm hoping the material and that is worked. It's worked on already. I've got a lot of it sort of written already. It's just a case of kind of trying it out a bit, hoping it works.
How do you like set material? Like, is it just something like, because that's one thing I watched Colin Geddes' podcast, and like I watched some of them on YouTube, and then whenever he's talking about stuff, you can see him writing down stuff. So is it just like, do you just something happen? Like, could you be in a supermarket just getting your groceries or something, and then something happen here? It's like, frick, that would be hilarious to talk about.
There are sort of the way there would be maybe something would happen, or I would think something like, I wonder what would happen if I did that, and then it goes, that could be a bit, and then it's maybe how do you just make something up to get to that bit, how do you make a story to get to the punchline, right? So like the only bit I can think of really was the first bit I ever wrote was about a time I went to see a doctor because I genuinely thought I had a lump in my balls, right? So it was a whole build up to that going on. What's something wrong with me here? And genuinely, when I went to the doctor, he just was like, you just have an ingrown hair. So I had built this whole big thing up, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to die here. This is my doctor. It's been with me from I was a kid. He's going to see. Then I'm worrying the whole way up, being like, what happens if I've never had another man touch my bits? What happens if he touches them? I get a wee bit excited. All this stuff's going through my head. I'm panicking. And after all that, he just went, oh no, it's just an ingrown hair. And I was almost like, why have you bothered me with this, you fucking idiot? So that was like my first bit. And then I thought, right, that wee bit's funny enough. How do I kind of tie a story up to that point? And it was just, that was it. So it was an ingrown hair, which was nothing serious at all. And then just how do I get a stupid story to lead up to there,
Nice.
So yes, that's hold on a second. I've got a pop-up here trying to make me install my Flash player. Not an ideal time, guys. There we are, sort of.
How did you get
Told you
into comedy?
technophobe, but just no clue about anything. Don't know what it's in.
Thomas, I thought you were about to say there, how did you get the grown hair? I was like,
No.
Tweezers,
this is
tweezers.
not
And I didn't have my own tweezers. I had to go and say to my mum, could she do it? Because at the time I wasn't married or a girlfriend. I had to say to my mum, can you? And she did it for me with tweezers. That's a joke, by the way. She didn't. Just like, oh, this mum.
I was just thinking, I don't know what to say.
I was about to say, was that an awkward experience?
I was like, nah, she does it all the time. I know she has one back and stuff, so it's fine. All right.
Jeez.
No thanks. But like your new show in December is Pillow Talk.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember all this stuff because I don't want to say something. You're like, no, it's not. You're thinking of someone else that is awkward. What's the whole premise behind that then? Because obviously I'm thinking it's going one way in terms of Pillow Talk.
Well, you know, Pillow Talk, the sort of known term is, you know, about things you say in bed when you're getting down to, you know, the nitty gritty, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I'm married now.
I want to see my ingrown hair in my balls.
Exactly. So I'm married. Basically, as soon as that happens, as soon as you sign that contract, it's in small print underneath the marriage certificate. It says no more sex in your life. So, you know, don't need to worry about that. So Pillow Talk's the idea came from, we were just having a chat in bed one night, and it was just such a weird, the conversation went in such a weird direction, but because both of us are just so used to each other being weird, we didn't realize it until we told somebody else, and they were like, what's wrong with you? The conversation was like, I was lying there just in bed, tired, and my wife was kind of like just touching my back. She was like, your back hair is really soft. And I was like, yeah, it is. And then I should have just gone, that's a weird thing to say, but yeah, it is. And she goes, do you condition that at all? Do you, like, on purpose? And I went, no, I don't think I actually like fully condition. I think it's maybe just when I'm doing my hair, it maybe runs down, and that's just what. And then we just got in this big conversation about how soft my back hair was and whether like I like treat it and stuff. And then you know, it's just that thought. It was like, you say some of the most stupid things in bed when you're not even paying attention. So it's just like that and other wee stories that, you know, have led into that, and then just other just general life stuff as well. But that was just the one of the bits that I thought would be a catchy title and would work. You know? Other than my mom tweezes my balls, I didn't think I would have the same hit, you know, on a poster. My ma tweezes my dick, but you know, but to some audiences, maybe, you know, maybe. But
I can imagine that on like Instagram or something, like my new show, Ulster Hall.
I know, it'd be weird if my mum actually liked it. You know, that'd be the weirdest thing of all. Like, don't be and sharing it. You know, that's what my mother-in-law loves to do. Share stuff. Like I saw something the other day on Facebook that she liked something, and it said she was one of my top fans. And I was like, oh no, that's absolutely tragic. You know, your mother-in-law, one of your top fans. So I just blocked her, reported her to Facebook. Hopefully she's been bothered.
I actually looked the other day. My mum's one of my Snapchat best friends. I'd never Snapchat anybody. Yeah. I actually went on it the other day. Went to send a Snapchat. I was like, "Mum, best friend." I was like, "What? Why is this?" I think I've sent like one Snapchat to her in like the past month. But yeah, I seen you on in the paper. It was the paper. It wasn't the front page now, but it was a paper.
No, thank God. Yeah, I was
nestled beside the one and only Jamie Dornan.
I mean, listen, if you're going to pick hunks from Hollywood, you know, Shane would argue himself, but myself and Jamie, who else do you want? The two bearded babes of the North Coast, or the North Down. Yeah, so I got, I was in the Sunday paper, and again, first and foremost, my dad texted me, he was like, oh, you're in the paper, and my first response was, oh no, what have I done? You know, fuck, what for? And he was like, no, it's actually nice for change. So yeah, I just said I'm one to watch this year, which whatever that means, you know, it's kind, but yeah, one to watch, which means I have to actually work then this year. I can't just lie back and chill. Like I have to try to do stuff because realistically, I've just been sitting for the last year, like most people, in my pajamas and in my dining room. Like, so it's, you know, not much to say really.
But then you also think like, you obviously, if you're doing the show and stuff, like it's understandable. But then the likes of Jamie Dornan, like obviously Jamie Dornan is Jamie Dornan, but like the last thing I seen of Jamie Dornan doing was The Fall, and then he's kind of went off radar. So you're like, what's he got cooking, or have they just like?
But you see, that's it, because I don't know if you guys have watched the 50 Shades franchise, or if that's maybe something you have given a ball to.
No, never.
But like he got into that, and just all the women all over the world are just like, oh, why this guy? You know,
are you going to follow us in footsteps now?
And I mean, like, I think I would definitely be in a direct-to-DVD version of 50 Shades of Grey. You know, it wouldn't be going to the box office. Just a guy just snoring all night with his arse out. Like, wouldn't be too sexy. But
Jamie
yeah,
stunt double.
I think it was a wee bit of probably an insult to him to be like, he's probably like, I mean, what do I have to do? I'm from here. I think I've done all right. I'm not one to watch, like, you know. So
yeah,
he's probably taken it as an insult, whereas I'm like, oh, this is lovely. You know, it's great.
That's funny because every time the topic of Jamie Dornan comes up in my house, my mum is retired now, but she was a midwife, and she was actually there whenever Jamie Dornan was born, apparently.
Nice. I mean, was she working, or was did she just know this is going to be
a star
like
was
some sort
born?
of witch? She was like, this guy, I know.
It came up in a really weird way because my mum's like a midwife. Like, she's like she just doesn't anything, even if it's at the dinner table or something. Like, if someone's talking about something, my mum is like completely comfortable with talking about anything. So she'll just bring it up and she'll just sit back and be like, yeah. And like my sister would be like sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. But we were talking about Jamie Dornan, and I was basically saying like, oh, he's in 50 Shades of Grey. And I said to Mum, I was like, you wouldn't like that, because Mum was like a religious person. I was like, you wouldn't like that because there's like sex and stuff in it. And she was like, well, I probably seen Jamie Dornan's arse before. And I was just like, oh dear, okay. And then by the time we realized, I was like, have you watched 50 Shades of Grey? Like, is this what you're doing whenever we're out of the house?
I mean, that would be slightly weird if she's seen him be born and I'd be like, see him in that film? Oh, why? You know, that'd be a wee bit.
Why? But you done a show before that then, a good few years ago, was it? Like, about you have a kid?
Yes, Dad, my show was called. It feels like I did it over about 6 years, but no, it was the one show, and did it in Belfast, and it went really good. And then there were, again, these promoters were like, do you want to do a tour? And I'm like, again, sure, I'll try it. And some of the gigs were great, and some were just, oh no, you know, why am I doing this? But yeah, it was my first the first show I've done that I've gone, I like that, I'm happy with it. You know, I've done shows before that I was like, what even is this shit like? And then I did that and was like, yes, that's a good show in terms of, you know, there's a good start, because again, you can do bits easy enough, you know, like 10-minute spots here, 15 there, but to have a show that has an actual sort of point behind it, you need a proper start and finish. They're probably the two most important bits of a show, and then like, how do you kind of tie it all into the middle? But I was happy with how that went, and I think that was the first time maybe I felt like, I'm like you know when Pinocchio says when he gets his strings cut off, I'm a real boy. I was like, yeah, I'm a proper stand-up now. I can do a proper. That was a good hour that I could stand over, you know. So I was really pleased with that, and I just hope this one is at least as good. You know, ideally better, but you got to sort of at least hope it's as good.
Yeah.
Because again, I got a wee bit like I don't want to say a wee bit sort of waylaid by the fact that are people just going to think all I talk about is my kids, which is boring, you know, like who wants to hear that? You know, is he just talking about that forever? So this show's more about like, you know, more generically relatable things, whereas like the last show was just about having my first kid. Now I've got two, so I mean I can't really just repeat the same stuff. So if they be like, right, these guys are just parked for now, I'm going to try to, you know, do other stuff here for a bit.
Yeah. And how does that work? Go ahead.
Where did you sort of start out like with a comedy? Like one of the things we were sort of talking about before you came on was like, where does like a Northern Irish comedian sort of like, where's the beginning?
Well, it's weird. Like, you know, a lot of comedians would be like, oh, I've just loved it forever and it was my dream and blah blah. I kind of fell into stand up a bit. Like I always liked it. You know, I always knew I liked it when I was growing up, and I liked watching stand up, but I wouldn't have said like, oh, you know, this is what I've always dreamt of doing. But when I must have been in my early 20s, I was probably about 22 or 23, a guy I was in school with who I wasn't really friendly with, like it was cordial, everything was fine, but we wouldn't have said we were mates. He was just like out of the blue, he's like, oh, I'm setting up this sketch comedy group if you want to be in it. I was like, what, weird that you've asked me. And he was like, no, you're always kind of like funny and stuff, and I thought you might be interested in that. And at the time I was a bit like, you know, seems a wee bit sort of like, you know, drama groups, sort of artsy fartsy, and I was kind of like, I'm not really into that at that stage. And I thought, you know what, let's give it a go and see what happens. So I got into that sketch group, and we kind of did shows for a good few years, and that whenever we went to the Fringe, and I think that was 2012. We went to the Fringe, and I was just there where I met like a load of the guys who I'm sort of now really good mates with, and we were just sort of hanging out and stuff when we were there. And then when the sketch group kind of there started off, I think, being about 8 of us in it, and by the end there was like 13 or 14. So it just was too many people, did too many different things, too hard to kind of organize. So everyone kind of went their own way, and all amicably and stuff. But then at that point, it was Shane Todd and Sean Haggerty and Mickey Bartlett were like, "Oh, you should try stand up." And I thought, well, if these guys are saying, you know, you should give it a go, there must be something there. So I tried it, and there wasn't anything there. There was nothing there at all. It was just, it was the worst. Like, stuff I was even talking about, I was like looking back on it going, why would I even think that's funny? You know, like what? Like I remember my first ever gig, I'd gone into this bar in I say bar, it was like, I don't even know, it was like a living room in Lisburn, and it was like a wee coffee shop during the day, and I had all this stuff. Like at the time I would have been, so probably I think I would have been about 26 or 27 at the time, and I had all this stuff about like Facebook and blah blah, and it's like that this will all be great. And then I went in, and there was about 4 people who must have been, the youngest must have been 82, and I was like, there's not going to get anything I'm going to talk about here. So I thought, do I amend the material or do I just do it? And I just did it. And I just basically, it's like if I were to close my laptop now and speak in my empty dining room, I would have got probably more back than what I got that day from those pensioners.
Oh, no.
And I mean, I don't know why I continued, because I did about 4 or 5 gigs. And like even other acts that are on are looking at you going, like, what are you? Why are you doing this? Like, why are you saying words in front of people? You're terrible. And then I think it was just a bit of me was like, I sort of thought in my head, I know I can do this. Like, I know I can figure it out, but it was just how to like figure out what my style was really. So that's whenever I wrote that bit about the ingrown hair, and I was like, okay, that, and then I did that, and I got my first like proper laughs, and I was like, okay, maybe if I sort of go down that sort of style of stand up, that'll be me. And then I kind of just wrote that sort of way going forward, and here we are, you know, trying to coerce people into buying tickets to see me in December. So yeah,
there seems to be like, so there seems to be like
go
a
ahead.
like of these like with the comedians, like is all the Northern Ireland comedians seem to like hang around together, like he's all just genuinely mates, or like how did is it just because he's worked together or what?
No, we are genuinely friends, like a lot of us, you know. And it's strange because, like, again, I think sometimes we get a wee bit of stick about, oh, it's just flipping 6 or 7 white dudes, you know, and sometimes you're like, you know, it's not through an intended act that is the case. It just happens that you know there's not enough really diversity here at the minute. So you know it's through no sort of fault of ours, but it just always seems to end up that way. And genuinely too, like we've done a few charity gigs whereby if you're booking it, you don't want to be asking people, would you come out and work for free of an evening? And then a lot of people be like, well, no. So if you just ask people who are genuinely your mates, you could be like, don't come do a gig and we'll go for a few beers afterwards and make a bit of a night of it. You know, if you're not working, it's sort of like almost like our social. So we try to do a couple of charity gigs every year, and then use that as kind of like our like work nights out, if you will. You know, so always the most fun. But genuinely, yeah, we are all really, really good mates, which is nice. We sort of speak outside of comedy and stuff too. That's how you know, I think, you're real friends, if you talk about other stuff than just stand up, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, these are all comedians. Is like, you know, the way every group has sort of their individual characters.
Yeah,
it's probably hard to pick this in a bunch of comedians. But who's the real funny guy?
The real fun. It all depends. Like everyone is so different, you know. Some people are better than others in the WhatsApp group. Let me just be fair about that. Like sometimes, you know, you'll put some absolute gold in there and get nothing back from it, and you just go like, you know, there's, you know the thing, you know where Kanye jumped on stage and was like, listen, this is one of the best albums of all time. You know, there's a meme one of us made, I don't know who it was, but it was like, that's some of the best banter of all time, and you throw it in there if you get nothing back, you know. It's like, you flipping pieces of shit. But no, everyone's always, and the good thing about it is sometimes you get some comedians that are always on, you know what I mean, always trying to like make jokes, and sometimes you're like, that's just exhausting, you know. So it's nice to be on that mate level where you can just, you know, have just general chats and just crack. Like it's good that way, you know.
Yeah, I would say
but genuinely there's nobody really on the scene that you go, oh shit, I'm gigging with them, you know. Like there's everyone's pretty sound, and I think there's a bit of a wee bit of a sort of snobbery towards acts from here, I think, because I know sort of the scene down south, there's not, you know, and I know from probably now it's better than it has been, but like some clubs that just wouldn't book us for some reason. You'd be like, oh no, you're not coming down here. And, you know, and there's a few guys who are, you know, really good and will come up and sort of do laveries or do pugs and they'll get you booked for gigs as well. And that's changing a bit, but it's like very rarely would you get, you know, maybe booked in or down south or across in England either. So I think that's kind of hopefully changing a bit now, but there was a time where it was like you would think, you know, we'd, you know, slept with their wives. Like some of them were like, we're not having you here, you know. It's like, all right, yikes.
Do you feel like it's something to do with that sort of, like, I do find myself Northern Irish comedies, it's sort of niche. It's like Northern Irish people are very, like, they're raw. Like I feel like we might be very offensive if we go over to, like I was just saying, the likes of England. You think people might not take our sort of comedy?
I think some of it has changed now a bit in that, like in Scotland, they love it. You know, there's a very similar sense of humor in like Glasgow and sort of Edinburgh and things, and that's where we would kind of, you know, have more success really. But I think there's an element of I guess probably up here, you just, our sense of humor, like even among friends and stuff, and like everyone has it, is more just, you know, cutting really. You know, we like to roast each other, basically everyone, and like whether it's your mum or your dad, like you'd be lucky to get them to say something nice to you. You know, it's more often than not they're tearing you to shreds, and I think you know that sort of translates into the stand-up a bit. And sometimes if you're trying to do, you know, I guess I hate to sort of say like woke comedy, but that seems to be very much the in thing in certain places like London or Dublin. It seems to be, you have to be very PC as to what you say. You can't, whereas I think here we would sort of, you know, again, you know what you say, what you're saying is a joke, and you know if it's done right, you can say if it's a good enough joke or it's worded right, you can say anything, you know, realistically. But then, you know, people will just take offense, and like I remember once I did a gig at Queen's, and like afterwards Twitter was just blowing up about how, like, you would have thought I was like Saddam Hussein or somebody, the way they were getting on. They're like, this guy, I can't believe he said this. And then like it started off, I made a joke which was I think it was I was what was known as, in my day growing up as a little boy, I was a bit of a handful, or in today's terms, severely ADHD, right? That was the joke. And they were like, what's he doing joking about? Oh, and they hear the word and they were like, and then it just went on this Twitter feed. Some girl tweeted about how I was like the worst thing that's ever happened to Queens, and I was like, what? And then some guys posted a news story about a guy with autism who got beaten up in a park, and he was like, this guy is causing things like this to happen. And I was like, how have I, you know what? And it was just really, it was surreal. But awesome. I was like, you know, and at the end of the day, if you want to be super snobby, you could be like, well, actually the joke was about, you know, labels, and now how in my day, you know, I probably do have ADHD, but in my day you weren't described, you know, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't a joke about the condition. It was a joke about me being a bit of a bollocks as a kid.
Yeah.
But they just jump on it. And sometimes you say words and people lose their mind. Like, and there's 2 times where I was like, oh no, that was one. And then another, I made it, like, this true story. A few of my mates, just for the crack, took my photos and put it on Grindr for like half an hour. And you know when you know your mates have done something to you, and you're like, you're looking at them and they're sort of going, you're like, what has happened? And they're like, oh, nothing, mate, nothing. And I was like, right, I know there's something up. What is it? And then they just spin the phone around and there's me on Grindr. Long story short, I was popping off on Grindr, right? Like I'd been on Tinder for about 2 years at the time and got nothing. 10 minutes on Grindr. needed to reset all your apps because there's no memory left in the phone. Like it was just popping off. So I was like, right, take that down, you know, please. And it was fine. So I was doing a bit saying basically how I wish I was gay, because if I was, I would be the cock of the walk. Like, I'd be cleaning up, but I'm not. I'm flipping. I can't even get a date to save myself. So that was what it was. And then somebody in the crowd just started screaming homophobic at me. And I was like, what?
No.
He goes, homophobic. I was like, what? And I said, pardon? He goes, you're being homophobic. And I was like, oh, wow. And then they went, my friend died because of this. And I went, because of my stand-up? Shit, I didn't no idea. And then out they went. And then afterwards, it turns out that it was another comedian who is a trans lady. And she was just like raging that and I sort of said to her, like, you do know I wasn't, if anything, I was saying, I was being very pro LGBT with that piece. I was like saying you're either born this way or you're not, like. And she was like, no, and then went off on it. And then we ended up getting into a wee bit of a, like, the promoter wanted her to come and speak to me, and I was like, nah, I don't want to talk. Why would I want to talk to her? If that's a stand-up, she should, if she had a problem, just waited until it finished and then been like, I found that to be, and then I could have said, oh, that wasn't how it was intended, I apologize. But I was like, nah, if she's a comedian, she should know the etiquette of it. She ruined my set, made my night bloody difficult. And I was not happy about that particular evening. But since then, I think I haven't had any moments like that, and that was definitely an eye-opener for sure. And you just sort of realize people will sometimes hear a word and then go, oh, and then it's just the red mist. So I think you should be, you can kind of say what you like, as long as you're not, if you go out intentionally to try and be offensive or hateful, that's a problem. But I just think some people hear words and then are just, and I think that's less maybe the case here because they know the sense of humor. But you go somewhere else, they might be like, oh no, this guy here.
Do you find yourself having to watch what you say now, or like do you keep it on your head, being like, oh, would that sort of come across badly, or are you sort of just like, this is what I
yes,
say? Like,
see, now I kind of just like, I think I'm happy in the fact that, like, I suppose when you're younger, you're more aware of what other people think. I think the older you get, the more you kind of go, well, it's not my, this is how I am as a person. These are my intentions. I'm not trying to offend anybody. If you get offended, that's your problem. Like, be offended. Good luck to you. It's not what my intention is. So, it doesn't bother you as much. I definitely think, I sort of just now write bits that I think where this would be funny and people would laugh at it. Sometimes you get a few, ooh, and then other times people, really like it. But it's just, I think now I'm just happy, and that this is the way I write, this is the way I do it. And the people, I suppose I'm in a bit of a nice position in that the people are buying tickets to see me now. It's good that that's the way, rather than, if you're on maybe like an ensemble show or something where there's loads of different acts, and maybe people were to come to see like a Colin or a Mickey or something, they might, and then they just be like, who's that guy? Looks like Pavarotti, offended everybody. That would be a problem. Whereas like now, you just sort of, people kind of know what you're like, and that's a bit of a saving grace, really. But I just think if people want to be offended, like, there's so much people get offended about now that you'd be, you'd have no hours in the day left if you're worried about offending everybody.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we know as well. I feel like I'm particularly more sensitive than these other two, because like whenever we're talking about something, I'm a bit like, should we say that? Like, is that okay? I'm the type of person where as soon as the podcast ends, I'm like, see that bit where you said that? Like, is it worth going back and just like maybe editing that out? And they're like, no, just like stick up. Because we find that probably the most free-flowing conversations we would have end up going down that route. And like, we would stick a couple of clips up on TikTok, and they're the ones that end up going mad, like viral. And you're like, how?
I think that would be my advice, would be try not to censor yourselves, and then if something does cause a bit of a scene, you're going to get more people looking at what you're doing. What I mean? So there's pros and cons to it as well.
That's exactly what me and Shay said. We're just like, but you want people to react to it.
But I'll tell you the secret that I only found out recently. Whenever I was doing Boytown, which is a podcast I used to do with Shane, every so often we have a producer, Ben, who now produces my podcast, but Shane, we had a group WhatsApp between the three of us, so anything sort of podcast related, but what Shane was doing was afterwards, if I said anything that he was like, oh, it might get me into trouble and people mightn't love me anymore, he would be messaging Ben, being like, can you please take that out or take something I said out? And I wouldn't, cause I never listened back to the podcast, so I have no idea. And he'd be like, yeah, he do that to me all the time. And I'd be like, that son of a bitch. You know, he's in there letting me say whatever the heck comes into my head. The most libelous stuff, and he's just all
would he be more? Would he be more? Suppose like, well, you do the BBC show too, and then he does it as well. Would he be more like, oh no, you can't say that in reference to, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Something could come back and bite me in the ass here.
Like we did. Like that's the thing too, though. Again, context. I always would say, listen, it was in a podcast. If people go and watch it, and you'll see the context, and then. But I have this thing with Tim McGarry, Da from Give Me a Headpiece, where like he said something to me about me on Shane's podcast, where he basically was like saying I was in and out of rehab with a serious class A drug abuse problem, right? And like he was sincere about it. Like he was like, yeah, Dave's got a real problem, and people are listening probably going, I didn't know that about him, which is complete bullshit, right? And it's not true at all. So we then started this wee thing where it was like, you know, I'm just going to start saying things about Tim McGarry like back as well. So if people ask me, oh, do you know him? I'm like, yeah, he's really hateful. Like, you know, he's this guy, he's so abusive. You don't want to be in a dressing room with him because he's a hateful piece of shit and all this. And then on the Boytown Christmas podcast we did, which was just like a one-off, I just said that I'd heard a rumor that he was on the logbook of Jeffrey Epstein's Island. And you could see in that video, Shane look at the camera like as if, can we say that? And he was like, and it's a funny bit because Aaron Butler edited it. So it's just a wee clip that he sent to me. And it was like, I said it. I was like, you know, Tim McGarry's and Jeffrey Epstein's Island. And then Shane goes, and just he zoomed in on his face like, oh no, can he say that? So yeah, he definitely would have that a bit more. But, you know, he's more of like a clean cut guy than I'd be anyway, you know, with his stand up and stuff anyhow. So yeah, I think he has more of an image to live up to than I would say. So yeah, he likes to be a wee bit more clean cut. Because I mean, look at him, he looks like I was going to say a boy, but he looks like, you know, like a boy that's an adult that's pretending to be a boy. It's a weird vibe he's got, but he's that sort of clean cut look, and he probably could do like presenting and stuff as well as the stand up and other things. So he probably has to, you know, be a better boy.
I think Shane, every time if we ever message him in the future, is just going to frankly ignore us, because we've had one run-in with Shane where I forget what it was exactly, but he had put up some piece of content, and I think it was Shay.
I remember.
Yeah, Shay.
What was the place in Donegal?
Muff. Yes.
That was in the radio show, wasn't it?
You had like talked about it, but like we'd literally done a podcast like the week before, and Shay brought Muff up, and we made a joke out of it.
The diving competition.
Yeah. And he put it on Instagram then, and we sort of commented under joking, being like, oh, someone's been listening to our podcast then.
Yeah.
And he just replied with, I've never listened to your podcast.
He's taking that thick.
Yeah. Proper, like, he was just like, what? And we were like, what? And then we like were on the phone with each other, and I was like, lads, he has not took this at all the way we intended, because we were just like, oh, someone's been listening to our podcast, and then like the eyes, and he was like, and then some other guy, I don't know who he was, but he just commented and was like, this guy is major in the NI comedy scene. Do you think he has time to be listening to your podcast? And I was like, who the frig's this wee guy? So we ended up just commenting on it and being like, love the radio show, keep up the good work. Like, I just cut it there. We were like, oh no, that was so awkward. That was down like a flipping.
I will say to him that you guys are raging with him. We're coming to get him, calling him a material thief, and I've got your back. I will stick with you. As I say, yes, I know you listen. I've seen the podcast you listen to on your Apple app, and I know you've been listening to the boys. So yeah, sort of.
What's the radio show like to do in comparison to like your podcast and stuff? Because obviously, like BBC Radio Ulster, you can't obviously chat normally.
What was funny actually? Last week was the first week of this new run. We had to pre-record because our producer had got COVID, so he had got COVID, and he produces Shane's podcast as well. So he had isolate. So the only way we could have done it was a pre-record. I recorded it in here, and then we sort of hashed it together that way. Again, that's a secret that you've got, an exclusive, if you will. And so we were doing that, and it was fine. But we were reading shout outs, and again, we get sent shout outs by loads of people looking just to read stuff out in the show and whatever. And sometimes you get shout outs that you go, that's like, who's writing this? Like, there's a guy every week who refers to himself as the human bat. I don't know if you've heard this. This guy's like, it's the human bat again. And he keeps basically just saying Batman things, but with human in front of it. So he's like, I was out fighting the human penguin. And I'm like, what? And we're reading this going, this is ridiculous, right? So sometimes, you think it's mad. And this one guy, I had read it out, a shout out for him. And thankfully it was pre-recorded because we got into a little bit of trouble about it. That his name, like, it was weird. Like, I just looked at it and thought, that is a weird sounding name. His name was James Stick, right? So that was fine. And then I was like, I'm looking at a big shout out for James Dick here. And it was only the read. And they were like, you can't say James Stick. And when I was reading it and writing, I was like, what's wrong with James Dick? And then I said to my wife, I was like, am I missing something here? Like, I just gave a shout out to James Dick here. And she went, what? And I went, James Dick? And she went, James's Dick. And I went, yes, I'm with you now. So that's how that sort of went. And if I'd have said that in there, I probably would have had my bum spanked for sure. But yeah, like you do sometimes, worry, because in between like doing shout outs or having a bit of crack when the music's playing, we get in the ears like from the producer being like, oh, you can't, don't be doing that or blah blah blah. So if we say something, you just go, oh no. And then once the producer of the show says something, then there's like executives who will be listening the whole way through, and will just have notes being made, and I'll be like, you talked about this, you said that, you mentioned James Dick, all this for fuck's sake. Yeah. So sometimes you do be a bit like, oh no, am I okay saying that? And then thankfully so far, touch wood, I've got away with everything. The muff chat I did think was a little bit sort of.
I was shocked whenever I posted it.
Yeah, but we were kind of told, that you can. We were sort of like, can we be cheeky? Put it like that, and they were like, yeah. And then like some of the boss would be, yeah, of course you can be cheeky. And then some bit to a point, you gotta know. And then sometimes you be pushing it, and you get away with saying some things, and you get away with saying. But then sometimes you're like, can I just say whatever I want? So that's what the worry is. If you get too comfortable, I think you would slip. But it definitely, I think our banter is sometimes a bit slower because you have to be aware of what's going to come out of your mouth next. At the first few weeks of live radio, I was like, I'm going to say fuck. I know it. I'm going to do it, and I can't help myself. It's going to pop out. But thankfully, so far, again, touch wood, by you this week, I said, and I'm struck off. But yes, it's definitely a bit more nerve-wracking for sure than a podcast.
Yeah,
it is. It's refreshing to see like BBC Ulster do like a show like that, because like you sort of just when you hear BBC Ulster, you sort of just think of like Stephen Carter and politics and country music,
Because again, it was strange because in the very outset, like we had done the Shane Todd show as it was for like a couple of runs, and to be fair, it wasn't good. Like we sort of didn't really know what we were doing. It was kind of like a wee bit of sketches, a wee bit of chat. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And then we just made it like, I'd actually said like, I don't want to do it anymore, basically, because I was having to like do too much writing and stuff for it. And I was getting sort of hit with deadlines. And it was stressing me out, and it wasn't getting paid anything good for it. And it was like, it's just more of a pain in the arse than anything, And then I was like, right, I'm not doing it anymore, basically, as it was. And then that it stopped for a bit, and we did a live podcast in the Accidental Theatre, I think, and one of the bosses in BBC was there, and he had gone because Shane was going to be starting a new series of a show again, just solo. And then the guy was like, oh, I like the two of you together, would you do? And then Shane was like, well, he said no, he doesn't want to do it. And then whatever way that it had discussed at the time, like, we'll try it a bit differently with sort of no sketches, just music and a bit of sort of crack in between. I was like, well, I'll give it a crack and see sort of what way it goes. And then it was just that was the first sort of time it was really good fun. It was really, really good crack to do the show. I was like, this is great. I love this. And then it sort of became the rave music and stuff. And that's just, it's loads of fun. Like, and especially during lockdown, it was almost like my night out as well. You know, two of us getting in the studio, like not seeing each other for whatever. You know, sound like Romeo and Juliet. You know, we keep us apart for too long. The love just gets stronger. So, it was good to sort of just almost like catch up and hang out again. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun to do. And I think at the minute, you know, we're doing all right with not being too inappropriate, thankfully, and just hopefully it remains that way, and we don't have any slips of the tongue, and you know, end up in the shit. So
you do seem that it does work well. I think the reason why it does work well is because like you do genuinely seem to have like a good sort of friendship, like connection type thing. So I think that's the reason why you definitely that, like, I think that's quite hard to come across in like radio, if you know what I mean, because like you listen to Cool FM sometimes and there's like not like the morning shows are fine, but like throughout the day, like they have it on at work, and you're definitely like them two definitely don't get on, like they're just kind of like chatting just for the sake of chatting here, just because they do it.
See, I think we like mugging each other off, and I think that's, you know, something that's like, I love nothing more than seeing something terrible happen to him. It's great, you know, and vice versa. So I think like there's elements of that I think, you know, we just like taking the piss, and it's genuine, and we would sort of try and push the envelope a bit with that. And I think like other than stand up, like we were both in each other's weddings, you know, wedding party and stuff, and he's the godfather of my daughter and I'm the godfather of his son and stuff. So we are like, if we both were to quit comedy tomorrow, we would still be friends, although I would have a reason not to have to speak to him, but we'd still, you know, have to be friends, really. So it's nice. Again, if nothing else, you know, I've got proper friends now as well that I'll hopefully have for the rest of my life, which probably will be a couple of years' time. As in that I'm going to have a heart attack, not that I'm going to do it to myself, just in case, you know, you're like, oh no, is this guy's really getting in the lockdown, get to him.
So, like, with regards to obviously lockdown and whatnot, like, is your week just completely free, or is it more like writing? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it more like writing and then doing the BBC shows and stuff, or is like?
Well, I try, but I have a 3-year-old and a 15-week-old baby in the house and my wife, so it's just it's terrible. You know, there's no peace. You can't. Just the only peace you get is whenever the kids are in bed. So either now in the evening or like 6 o'clock in the morning. So you have to try to fit stuff in around that. But it like, again, I think my attitude to it has been, yes, this situation sucks, but it's going to suck no matter how you kind of approach it. So try to, you know, make it as, you know, make the best of it as what you can. So from being a stand-up, I went, right, what can I do that'll help me sort of as a comedian? So I focused a lot on the podcast, and then I did spend a lot more time kind of writing and pitching things to the places that otherwise I probably just wouldn't have done. So I just try to do that a bit more. And like the first lockdown, hands on heart, I was just greedy. Like my diet and my exercise went out the window, whereas kind of now I've kind of built a bit of a gym in the garage, and I'm trying to get out there as much as I can, and I'm doing Weight Watchers or Slimming World, with my wife.
Swimming World.
Just trying that. And I tell you what, at the beginning I was like, she goes, "I'll try it for the month of January," and I was like, "It'll do nothing." And I've tried it, and it's, to be fair, decent. You know, I'm feeling good on it, and you never feel hungry. It's almost like you're cheating, but it seems to be working. So all in all, I'm enjoying the lockdown to a point, but also definitely want to get back to normal as soon as possible, because there's only so long you can stay in the house with these children, like, without, you know, wishing for your younger days. You know, that's sometimes like, I remember I used to be happy, you know, those sort of things. Well, that's good.
What where did the name Sly Guy come from for your own podcast?
Well, again, my wife, once again, she was the voice of honesty, and I got a few like stickers made up for the podcast. The old name for it was Dave Elliott's Weird Podcast, which when I say that now, I kind of cringe. I'm like, why did I ever think that was a catchy name, you know? So I printed a couple of stickers for that as like prototypes, and I said, "What do you think of these?" She said, "Who would want them?" And I went, "All right, that's kind." She was like, "Yeah, who'd want to wear it?" Like, who'd wear that on merchandise? And then she just kept going and going. Like, who'd want to wear your face? Look at your face. You're so ugly. Why am I married to you? You know, and I was like, you can stop, but get the gist, right? I'll change it. So I thought, right, I'll change it. And it just kind of, I love the word sly. You know, I would always kind of, even from as a kid, I was, oh, he's sly. And I just thought, it's a good Sly Guy. Let's check it out. Is there any? And I went on iTunes and there was no Sly Guy podcast. I thought, bingo. You know, first name I thought of. I thought that'll save me a lot of work. So that was kind of where that came from. Just literally the first thing that popped into my head that and didn't have any sort of podcast already called that. So it was good. It was lucky.
Yeah. And did you find like your... Go on ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you mentioned in your last podcast, you sort of touched on it there. Like, are you working on like a new sketch show or something? You were saying about pitching shows.
I have. I had an idea for like a sitcom basically, and I thought, okay, and now this is where I need to watch what I say. I was aware that some maybe sitcoms that are made locally mightn't be, let's just say they're not to my taste. All right. I don't want to say they're good, bad, and different, but they're not to my taste. All right. So I thought, right, I very much want to avoid, you know, my sense of humor. Like I laugh at things that happen kind of in life, and sort of people's reactions to things are funny. Like to me, I like comedies. Like I like The Office. I like Peep Show, you know, things like that, where like the laughs maybe come from sort of natural environment rather than being really like forced, like laugh now, you know, that sort of way.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, if I'm going to be pitching this, I need to make sure that my sense of humor and what I want the tone to be comes across. So filmed a wee taster of it and sent that off. And yeah, the feedback that was great. They're like, oh, I really like that. And then I had a couple of production companies who were like, yeah, we'd like to develop that with you. Hopefully there'll be, you know, a pilot at some stage or whatever down the line. But again, I think that big help for me was filming the wee taster, which was only like 4 or 5 minutes, but it kind of showed there's say 3 couples. It's about like young, like new dads basically. And there's just 3 couples. They're all different from different sort of backgrounds and stuff. And just wanted to show each character and their partner how, you know, they were. And yeah, I was happy with that. So hopefully that'll be being developed, and it'll be how I kind of want it to be, and not just.
I don't think there has
the same kind of.
I don't think there has been anything quite like Are you UK Office or US Office?
See, this is probably a divider of opinions, but I love the UK Office so much. I haven't even tried the US Office. Now I'm sure it probably is good. I just haven't tried it. I just wouldn't, because I just feel like I just could. You know.
Was it the first one you watched?
Pardon?
Was it the first one you watched? Because a lot of people seem to like The Office that they watch first. So I would be American, but I watched the American Office first.
Yeah. But no, I watched the UK Office first, and then it was just like, you know, to me that was my favorite sitcom. You know, I just thought that was brilliant, and I liked it so much that if I watched the US one, I'd be like, these fuckers have ruined this, you know, and I just didn't want to get annoyed, so I just haven't. But I know that people really love it too, and I'm sure I'll probably watch it at some point. But just haven't got around to it in case I just got angry.
Do you feel like there's nothing that you can do now like that? Like if you were to do a TV show now, do you feel like, because you know the way in the UK Office, like there would be stuff where you're like, that would not sit well nowadays? Is there stuff that you just are flat out like, I can't include that? Do you know what I mean?
Well, see, this is the problem. Like, I don't see that, so I think that's where like script advisors will be. I can't say that, Dave. You know, I think that's too far. You know, so I'll write it what I think's funny and sort of, you know, let people look at it, and then I'll probably go, nah, I should probably change that. Like there was another thing that I have. It's earlier stage than this one, but I had an idea that I'd sort of shown to a production company. And one of the producers was like, right, I like it. I like what you're doing, but could you change the main character transgender? And I was sort of like, why? Just, you know, and he was like, it's in. And I went, I mean, that in and of itself is probably a problem. You know, you can't just say it's in, you know, and he was like, I said, the character, there's no other reason other than you're just like, you know, wanting to take a box. Like, no, it just wouldn't work. You know, if you're looking you would need, for something as big a deal as that, you would need to be like a proper part of the story, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a proper explanation rather than just there you go. What about changing? And it's like, so that was one, and thankfully that's not that's now back in that project's back in my hands to pitch to other people. So it's not with this dude anymore, because it was like, I was like, oh no, because I just, in my head, I'm like, if I just did that, people would be so angry, if they were just like, you've just thrown. And then at the time, now it's changed because I don't want to be, at the time I wanted to be that character, but now I'm like, I just don't really want to be in stuff really anymore. And I just would like to write where I can. The thing that I have going a minute, I would like to be in, but the rest of the stuff probably not. So I just thought, imagine me, like I would be so offensive to people, like just me with the beard and the wig. It's so horrible, just be honest. Like this guy's like, do you even know how people would react to that? In his head, he's like, listen, it's very forward thinking, but in reality, it's like, if anything, it's
not.
People, and it's going to be me cancelled. You'll be cancelled. Everybody, they just throw a blanket of cancellation over everything. So yeah, that was interesting. But I initially thought he was kidding, but totally sincere. So let's try it. What about? And if I ever hear that phrase, what about? No, the answer's going to be, nah, you're all right. No, not today.
I cannot believe that. What about transgender? Because it's so in right now.
Yeah. Yeah, what about this guy? And you're like, no, sorry,
Thomas has just popped off.
But to be fair, it is. He's offended at that but yeah, I just that to me was the worst that I thought. Like, because there are some things that obviously there to me are like there needs to be more diversity here. Certainly, it needs to be more female representation. It needs to be. Again, I just think it's hard because Northern Ireland is so historically, it's just, it's not a very diverse place, really, and, you'd be almost pushing positive discrimination to be filling quotas from here, but I do think like we need to have more, just as long as the scene's open to whoever wants to do stand up, I think, there should be no way to hold people back, but, at the same time, you need to be funny enough and you need to be hardworking enough to justify rather than just people being, oh, you're this or you're that. There's a spot, you know what I mean? And that's what I thought this guy was sort of saying. Just throw that in there just to tick a box. And I was like, nah, you can't be at that.
Yeah.
Do you speak with like many producers around and like that you're just sort of like, fuck, you don't have a clue what you're on about? Like that's almost like a TV show in itself, like for someone to come out with that, like a character, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but like I think there again, it's maybe now it's a bit better because I think I now have a bit of an idea as to what to do with ideas that I have. Like before, I didn't have an idea. I just thought, I have to write a full script and then send it to people. Whereas in the real world, we're like, now I just need a couple of page treatment for people to be like, that sounds like an interesting idea. And then later down the line, they'll be like, oh, there's some funding, write a script, Whereas I think over here, there's no like maybe process of explaining how to do things. So I kind of just only really found out the right way to pitch ideas to people during the last lockdown, really, whenever I had a bit of time to do, push this taster that I'd done. And again, I had no clue. I just thought all you do is write a script and then somebody will come along and take it and that's you. Whereas now I kind of know the way to do it. And again, it was a wee bit sort of like, again, I was such an amateur, when I was asking people about, so I have this idea and like producers like, why are you coming to me with this? And it's like, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. But now, thankfully, I can just I have an agent who's amazing. Like he'll just go and do all that sort of side of things. And if people like it, and he'll be like, they like it. And if they don't, he'll be straight with me. That's what I like. Because I find there's a lot of wishy-washy in sort of like entertainment, if you will, where people will be like, oh, I like it. It's not for me. Whereas he'll just be like, nah, I think it's shit. And I'll go, thank you. I appreciate the honesty, So kind of put that away, move on to the next. So it's good in that he will deal with like any of the like awkward conversations you would have, like talking about fees and stuff, or like talking about developing things. He'll do all that now for me, and he's great, and I totally trust him to do that. So I can kind of just focus on trying to come up with ideas or develop things, which is nice.
Yeah.
So it's just the fun stuff, and he deals with all the stuff that I don't want to. It's great.
Happy days. We got a few questions for you.
Okay.
Not ours, but so see, I'm a bit confused because a few people have asked, someone asked, can I have a Shabba?
Yeah.
Explain.
Who's it for?
I don't know. Like, I'm so confused because this came up and I was like, what is this about?
Of course, whoever that is, you can have there you go. Shabba, have it, enjoy it, put it in your pocket and keep it for later. Share it out.
So is that like a catchphrase then, or?
That's a radio thing. You know, when people are looking shout outs and stuff, they look shout outs and Shabbas. Right. So yeah, that's a radio thing. A Shabba.
So you need to give his name then.
Yeah. The person who sent this one's probably
Shabba to the anonymous one. And Shabba to one and all. Whoever wants one can have it. They're going free.
One of the we already covered. Someone that asked, "Have you ever had a bad reaction from a crowd?" And I think you've already covered that in your yes. What did you do before comedy?
I work for a social housing provider, which has provided me with a lot of material that I can't say yet until I've got something written. So yeah, I worked a lot with sort of communities and things, which I enjoy a lot. Like it was fun. So yeah, it was again something that you probably need to be fully like sure that you're not going to have to bump into people anymore. Before you put this up, but you're the guy that said, hey, so yeah, I worked there with like for I suppose, like I was my title was community cohesion officer. So like just dealt with grants and stuff for community groups and did projects and stuff with them. So it was a lot of fun. Like it was nice, but also very stressful. And it was fun. But again, hopefully in the future I'll be able to do a lot of those stories or like write them into other things and stuff, because some of the things you've seen in that line of work, 10 out of 10 hilarious.
Yeah.
But also as I have a couple of young kids, I worry that I might need my knees to like walk them, on my shoulders and stuff. So if I said the wrong thing about the wrong person, they listen, it'd be a bit of a problem.
Someone has asked, what's the goal for your comedy?
I mean, at the minute, just to to me, it's never been anything more than just to do a job that I like, to be able to go, this is a fun job. At the end of the day, you only like have one go at life, so you may as well enjoy it. You may as well do something you actually want to do. So if I could do something that if every day is just me being silly and I get paid for it, that's the dream. That's it.
Yeah.
So and hopefully just to be comfortable and every day do something fun.
Yeah, and I'll leave it with this one. Have you ever flopped at a gig?
I'm glad I said at a gig there, because I'm going to say yes plenty of times. But yeah, there's nothing worse than when you're saying things to try and make people laugh and just people aren't laughing. Thankfully now I think you sort of, the more you do it, the more you kind of get used to the fact that if you say maybe one or two jokes and they're not getting any laughs, you're experienced enough to know to maybe go back to the gold, go back to stuff it works and be able to kind of in the moment. But see, in the beginning, you almost just like, I did anyway. You just almost learnt your bits verbatim off the page, and you just like, I just need to say these. So there have been a few times in the early days that have just really, really, really sucked, and thankfully they're few and far between now. But I honestly can't. In fact, I can remember the last gig I did that I remember going, I have eaten shit, was in 2017 at the Empire. That's that like there's been times that have been since then, or that wasn't a great set, or I could have done better, but that I properly died was at the Empire. And Shane was at the gig watching, and he has a photo of me, and I'm standing there, and I'm just whatever way I'm holding the mic, I'm looking at the ground. You can just tell from my face, he knows he's eating shit here, and he hates it up there. It was like such a grim, sad photo of just me just going, dear, and it was especially bad because it was the first time my wife's brother and his wife had come to see me. So she was like, so we were just going out at this stage. So she was like, oh, he's really good. He's doing really well. I'm chuffed for him. You got to see him. And they came, and it was just like,
pressure got.
And in fact, back in the Empire, I did a charity gig probably 2 years ago, actually. So yeah, that was the first time. So the first time I've been back in the Empire since that. And this was a charity gig, and nobody wanted to watch comedy at all at that point. So what had happened? Oh, this is the worst. That Shane wanted to do a spot and then leave. So he had turned up and had sort of set up to do his spot. Was like, no, I need to go first and then go. So whatever way the order of the running order was, he had ballsed it up, basically. Yeah. So the gig we were doing was to raise money for a guy that had passed away, right? So there was a memorial video of the guy, basically like some stuff about him, and a really moving video about this guy who lost his life. And then they were like, so whatever the way the running order was, it's going to be Shane will go on there, we're going to play the video, then Dave. So I was like, so there's people are here to raise money for this guy's family who's died. You're going to show a memorial video of him, then I have to go and be funny. And they're like, absolutely. So I did that. And when I went on, people just were like, not interested. They were just at the bar. It was like, I just hated it.
Crying.
It was like, I remember looking at like this couple who were like actually trying to watch me. But then I just got, I think I was supposed to do 10 minutes, and I think I did like 6 and went, right, I'm away home here. This is just, horrible. Yeah. And then everyone's going to be going, that guy was so shit. But that was really grim, because like usually if you're getting brought on, people will be like, oh, and here he is, a round of applause, and everyone's sort of clapping. Whereas this was basically pure silence, as it should have been for that video. And then someone just went on, like you hear the footsteps on the stage, and then Dave Elliott. I was like, and then having fun, guys. No, obviously you aren't. Okay, I'll just talk and then leave. So that was really awkward. So yeah, that was the last gig that really sucked. Yeah.
That would be a really bad way to come on. Like, what about that memorial video, eh? No.
I know. Like, what about that? Some editing in that video, wasn't it? Give it a round of applause for the editors. Whoa. It's like, that's all.
But that's the end of the questions anyway. And I think we'll wrap up because probably kept up enough of your time.
Yeah, no problem. That was a lot of fun, guys. Cheers for having me.
No, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. And good luck for all of your future... Well, there's Thomas back.
Oh, he's back. Yeah. He was just away for a big dump. Just pretended to be incognito, but he's like, oh, I feel much better now. Things don't matter.
They've done it a few times, like, and I just... Oh, nightmare.
I was literally waiting to hear Thomas just cursing and swearing in the middle of it. I was like, he's gonna flip the tits here with technology. Dave thought you were away because he made a comment about a transgender person, and then immediately
like, no, I'm gone. That's it. I am triggered and I'm gone.
I let out a big say because I kept going off, and I thought if he's talking and he's heard me say this, he's probably thinking, "Fuck, he's a dickhead."
No, listen, I like it. At least you're honest. You're like, listen, I'm bored of this guy. Here we go. Fair play.
But no, thanks very much for coming on, and hopefully everything goes well with your future secret plan.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Yeah, hopefully, and hopefully you don't get me cancelled from anything I've said in this podcast, and it'll be grand.
No, thank you very much. Anyway,
cheers for having me. Best of luck, guys.
All right.
Yep. Let me know when this is out, and I'll get shared and stuff for you. All right.
No problem. Thank you very much, Dave.
All best, guys. Take care.